What's up, internet? My name's Ori. Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell. You'll never miss a video. You'll never miss a stream. Today we're going over Survivor, season 44, episode number 12, the second to the last episode, the penultimate episode before next week's finale. If you haven't been watching over on Kick, we've been actually streaming, doing watch parties over there. So make sure you check out the links in the description down below, pin comment as well. We'll be live for a watch party for the finale episode next week as well. So make sure you come on out to that. It'll be a fun time. As for this episode, they were trying to lie to us along the way and lay seeds for certain things to happen in the end. But it did feel a little predictable on how things were going to turn out. But before we get to there, let's just kind of start at the top. What was going on? It was all the fallout from Danny being voted out last tribal, Carolyn using her immunity idol when she didn't have to. She said she doesn't regret it either. And she starts to tell them the story about how she got the idol out of the cage, how she even used the fake red X to trick Sarah earlier in the game to think she had an immunity idol. And it would seem like the more and more she told this story, the more and more they started to respect and see Carolyn actually as a valuable game player than just, oh, that's Carolyn. She's a little bonkers, right? Like, don't worry about her. She's not really a threat. But it did seem like they started to actually respect her game a little bit more, which did seem to worry Jam Jam as possibly somebody who could beat him in the end if he went there with her. So we did get to see some of that going on. Early in the next morning, we saw Heidi get up and begin the search for an idol. She already has an idol, but it's always nice to have two if you could. She's caught, though. Carson actually sees her getting up as she's leaving. He wakes up Carolyn. Everybody else starts to get up, and there's kind of the mad search for a potential idol, but nobody ends up finding anything that we're aware of. So it seems like that was all just kind of a big waste. We do, though, see Lauren and Jamie pitch to Carson and Jam Jam like, hey, why don't we do like a Final Four thing? Like the four of us, right? Me, this is Jamie talking, Lauren, Jamie, Jam Jam, and Carson as the Final Four. Get rid of Heidi and Carolyn and go for her this week, which is a weird play, but I get it, right? Carolyn did make herself to seem like a threat at the last tribal, so maybe you thought you could convince them to go along with you to save both of your butts, but we'll see how that all turns out for you. Carson plays along, right? He's like, oh yeah, sure, this is a great idea, but doesn't seem to want to do it at all. He would rather keep Tika strong and stick with Carolyn, especially because Carolyn just used the idol to save him, even though he didn't need her to use it. It's the thought that counts, right? Meanwhile, Jam Jam, he seems like he's considering it a little bit. Like I said, he's kind of getting this idea that, you know what, maybe Carolyn is a threat, and we should be worried about that. That takes us to the reward challenge, where the teams were split up between Carson, Lauren, and Jam Jam, while Heidi, Jamie, and Carolyn were in the other group. I kind of wanted to see Carolyn in the ball because I thought that would be fun, but it ended up being even more fun seeing her outside of the ball because what it was that one where you have to roll the ball and one person goes inside while the other two are blindfolded. So it's kind of the caller listener type of thing, but they had to roll the ball. Carolyn loses hold of the ball and falls way far back, trying to find her way back to the ball. Carson, Lauren, and Jam Jam, they ran away with this one. They got all the way to the maze, and they were pretty much finished the maze while the other group were starting the maze at the end of it. It was one of those tilt mazes, but again, the two people doing the tilt maze are blind. You have the caller who's telling them what to do. So there was a little bit of difficulty there. Maybe the others could have caught up, but they ended up winning the reward. Carson, Lauren, and Jam Jam head on off to get foot massages. So, if you're in the feet, I think you like this episode. They got foot massages and some sandwiches, cookies, all that kind of stuff they could kind of munch on. Meanwhile, while that was all happening, they did lay more of the seeds with Jam Jam kind of being on board of getting rid of Carolyn Meanwhile, back at the camp, Jamie was pitching Carson to Heidi and Carolyn, which seems like a weird one. Again, Carolyn just used her idol to save Carson, so why would she be on board with voting him out the very next tribal? That seems to be kind of a weird way to go about it, but again, you know, you got to make your pitch to see what you can do. She eventually leaves, and Heidi's like, all right, so yeah, it's a final four between me and the Tika 3, right, Carolyn? Like, I'm on board with voting Jamie. Like, we're good. We're good. So they end up having that pretty much locked up there. Then we head to the Immunity Challenge. It was a classic Survivor challenge where you had to balance the ball on a disc while they were holding on to two ropes. Most of them were out really quickly. It ended up coming down to Lauren and Heidi, who move on to stage 2, where they end up backing up and getting more slack in that ropes, making it even more difficult for the ball to stay on that disc. So that ended up being just a competition between Lauren and Heidi. But it ended up being Lauren who pulls out the win, gets immunity, which didn't make things look good for Jamie. It felt like, all right, you know, the Tika 3, they really should stick together here. It doesn't make sense for them to go against each other at this point. Like, yes, Jam's getting some worries about Carolyn being a threat to win, but there's plenty of time for that to happen, right? You don't need to do that right now, especially when you still have the numbers and you can have the numbers going into the final 5. That's going to be really important as well. So it seemed like Jamie or Heidi being the biggest threat that was still remaining. Jamie, not as much of a threat, but she's a threat with Lauren, right? Having the two of them together, that makes things tough. You would really want to kind of break up that pairing because Lauren would never turn on Jamie and Jamie would never turn on Lauren. So if you could break those two up and then have it be the Tika 3 with Lauren and Heidi, who are definitely not going to work together because they've really been just so far apart on everything so far this season, that seemed to be like the best case scenario moving forward. The real question was, if you're Heidi, do you trust in all this to be able to not play your idol, or do you play the idol? I feel like if I was Heidi, I would have to play the idol, knowing I was more of a threat than Jamie. Even though it made sense for the Tika 3 to vote out Jamie, you just don't think you can go into that tribal just expecting them to not vote you out. And you have to do that to get to the final 5. Because if you're not in the final 5, you go home with an idol in your pocket at 6. That's terrible. That's terrible. So we get to tribal, and one thing that was kind of interesting was they brought all of their supplies to tribal. In recent seasons, they've been making them start over at Final 5 on a brand new camp with no food and no supplies. But since they brought everything they could, now they're kind of set up and ready for it. I would imagine Jeff probably wasn't too happy with this. Jeff probably didn't like that they foiled their plans and now they're going to have a whole bunch of supplies to take back with them to their camp. But that takes us to the actual vote. What happened? So like we were saying, Jam was laying the seeds that he was going to vote Carolyn, especially to Lauren and especially to Jamie. That was all really just a ploy to get them to vote Carolyn. The 2 votes went on Carolyn. The other 4 all went on Jamie. Heidi did play her idol, even though she didn't need to, so that idol is flushed. And Jamie joins the jury, which sets up our final 5 as we head on into the finale. It really seems to me that Jam, Carson, and Carolyn are going to stick true to each other. It probably would be in their best interest for all of them to get rid of one of the other at one point, right? You'd rather probably go to a final 3 with, say, Lauren or Heidi there with you than you would want to go with all 3 of them together. I don't think if you're one of the Tika 3, you want to be sitting there with Lauren and Heidi necessarily, and you're the one that made them leave. You would rather it not be your fault that they're sitting at jury and they're not sitting next to you in the end. But it's going to be interesting to see how this goes. We've seen a lot of imagery with Carson and fire, whether it's him saying he doesn't know how to make fire, whether it's fire reflected in his glasses, him standing in front of a fire as the flames flicker up. I feel like Carson's going to be in the fire making challenge at Final Four. So it really probably comes down to what happens in Final Five. Will Lauren or Heidi be able to win immunity? And then it's just the other one who gets voted out. Will the Tika 3 end up losing a member there at Final Five? And then Carson ends up going to fire making at Final Four. Who will be the Final 3? Who do you want to see win the whole thing? Let me know in those comments down below. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you. If you are new here, hit that subscribe button. You like this video, hit that like button, hit that notification bell so you never miss a video, you never miss a stream. We will be live doing a watch along for the finale next Wednesday, so make sure you follow the kick stream. Links are in the description down below, pinned comment as well. Thank you guys again so much for watching, and I will see you next time.